Hey everyone. I never thought I'd be here, but after everything that's happened, I need to get this off my chest. Maybe writing it down will make it feel more real. Or maybe it'll help me finally let go of the anger that's been eating at me for months. Either way, here goes nothing. Thanksgiving was supposed to be a day about family, about sitting around the table, stuffing yourself with food, and pretending for a few hours that everything was fine. Instead, I sat there, a forkful of mashed potatoes halfway to my mouth, staring at my father in disbelief. "You need to leave," he said. Just like that. I almost laughed, waiting for him to crack a smile, to say something, anything, that would tell me he was joking. He wasn't. I glanced at my mom. She wouldn't even look at me. My younger sister, Emily, kept her head down, pushing green beans around her plate. My brother, Ryan, just stared at the table, his jaw tight. "What?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. My dad leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. He looked calm, like he had already made this decision and was just waiting for me to catch up. "This is our way of thanking you," he said, shaking his head like I had somehow failed them. I set my fork down, suddenly not hungry. "Thanking me? For what, exactly?" "For your small contribution," he said. The words dripped with sarcasm. My stomach twisted. I had been staying with them for a few months, yeah, but I wasn't just mooching off them. I had a full-time job. I bought groceries, not just for myself, for everyone. I covered takeout when no one felt like cooking. I paid the Wi-Fi bill because my siblings needed it for school. Hell, I even gave my dad gas money when he complained about being short. I wasn't expecting a medal, but to sit here and act like I did nothing? That was insane. "You're kidding," I scoffed. My dad didn't blink. "Not enough. Not enough." My voice rose, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. "You're a grown man, Jack. You should take care of yourself." And just like that, it clicked. This wasn't about me not contributing. This was about the vacation. A few days before, my parents had asked me to pay for a family trip, not just a weekend getaway, but a full-blown luxury vacation. Flights, resort, the whole thing. At first, I thought they were joking. When I realized they weren't, I told them no. My dad's face had darkened. My mom gave me a look like I had just spit in her food. And after that, things changed. The conversations got shorter. The tension thickened. And now, here we were. "This is about the vacation, isn't it?" I asked, voice low. My mom pursed her lips. "Jack, family supports each other." I let out a sharp laugh. "Oh yeah? And what exactly have you done to support me?" Her face tightened, but before she could answer, my dad slammed his hand down on the table. "Enough." His voice was final. "If you're not willing to help, then you can leave. Simple as that." I turned to my siblings, hoping, praying, that one of them would speak up. Emily still wouldn't look at me. Ryan, he just sat there. My throat burned. Not one of them was going to say anything. I swallowed the lump in my throat and pushed my chair back. "Fine." My voice came out flat. "I'll go." I stood up, my hands clenched at my sides. "But let me make one thing clear, no more groceries. No more bills. No more helping out." That made my dad laugh. Actually laugh. "Go ahead, loser," he sneered. "See how long you last on your own." I didn't say another word. I just turned and walked out. That night, I packed my bags. It didn't take long. I hadn't really settled back in. A part of me had always known this was temporary. The hardest part wasn't leaving. It was realizing that not a single person tried to stop me. I found a cheap apartment in the next town over. It was small, the walls were thin, and I could hear my neighbors arguing through them at night. But it was mine. And for the first time in months, my paycheck actually lasted. I could buy something for myself without feeling guilty. I didn't have to wonder if my dad would be short on gas money or if my mom would drop hints about how expensive groceries were. I told myself I was better off. And then my phone rang. It had been a month since Thanksgiving, and I hadn't heard a single word from them. Not a text. Not a call. For the first few days, I kept checking my phone, half expecting Emily or maybe even my mom to reach out. But nothing. I told myself I didn't care. But when my mom's name flashed across my screen that night, my stomach dropped. I almost didn't answer. But something told me this wasn't just a random call. I sighed and picked up. "Jack." My mom's voice came through, quieter than usual. I didn't say anything. Just waited. She hesitated. Then, finally, "We need your help." I almost laughed. "Now you need my help? What happened? Your vacation plans fell through." She didn't respond right away. In the background, I heard muffled shouting. My dad's voice. And then, softer, It's Ryan. I sat up. What about him? Another pause. I could hear her breathing, unsteady. He lost $25,000. My stomach dropped. He what? He was gambling, she admitted. And now he owes it back. I ran a hand down my face. Jesus Christ. Ryan was barely old enough to drink, let alone gamble. But 25 grand? That wasn't just a bad poker night. How the hell did he even get that kind of money? He borrowed it, she said. Something in her voice made my chest tighten. From who? Silence. Then, barely above a whisper. Not a bank. My blood turned ice. I gripped the phone tighter. You're telling me he took money from a loan shark? She didn't answer. But she didn't have to. My jaw locked. My heart pounded. This wasn't just a stupid mistake. This was dangerous. A month ago, they had laughed in my face when I said I was done paying for everything. They had thrown me out like I was nothing. And now? Now they were begging. Because they had no one else to turn to. I should have hung up. I should have told her it wasn't my problem. But, despite everything, Ryan was still my brother. And if he owed money to the wrong people, this wasn't just a life lesson. This was life or death. I gritted my teeth. I'm coming over. My mom exhaled, relief flooding her voice. Thank you, Jack. I hung up before she could finish. I grabbed my keys and stepped out into the freezing night air. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I knew one thing. This wasn't over. The drive back to my parents' house felt wrong. I hadn't been back since the night they threw me out, and now, barely a month later, here I was, crawling back, just like my dad probably expected. Except I wasn't here to beg. I was here to clean up Ryan's mess. The streets looked the same, but they felt different. A few houses still had Christmas lights up, even though it was late January. The same beat-up cars sat in the driveways. But I felt like I didn't belong here anymore, like I was stepping into a place that had already moved on without me. I pulled into the driveway and killed the engine. For a second, I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel. Every instinct in my body told me to put the car in reverse and get the hell out of there. But then I thought about what my mom had said. 25 grand. Not from a bank. From people you don't want to owe money to. I sighed, shoved the door open, and walked up to the house. Before I could knock, the doors swung open. My mom stood there, looking exhausted. Her hair was pulled back into a messy bun, and there were deep shadows under her eyes, like she hadn't slept in days. Jack, she breathed, like she was actually relieved to see me. Come in. I hesitated for a second. Then I stepped inside. The smell hit me first, cinnamon air freshener and cheap vanilla candles. It was the same as always, but the energy in the house felt off. Ryan was slumped on the couch, hunched over, staring at his hands. My dad stood by the dining table, arms crossed, jaw tight. Nobody spoke. I shut the door behind me and looked between them. All right, I said. Someone tell me what the hell happened. Ryan didn't move. My mom sat next to him, rubbing his back in slow, soothing circles, like he was a child who had just scraped his knee, not a grown-ass man who had just screwed himself over. My dad, of course, had no sympathy. Your brother was an idiot, he said flatly. Ryan let out a sharp breath, but still wouldn't look at me. I didn't mean for it to get this bad, he muttered. I crossed my arms. How do you accidentally lose 25 grand? He swallowed hard. It started small. Just a couple hundred. Then I won big, so I kept going. He finally lifted his head, and for the first time, I saw it, fear. Real, bone-deep fear. And then I lost everything, he said, voice hollow. I clenched my jaw. Okay, but you didn't have $25,000 to lose. So who the hell gave you that money? Ryan hesitated. My dad answered for him. He took out a loan. Something about how he said it made my stomach twist. What kind of loan? Silence. Then, my mom, in a small voice, not a bank loan. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. Jesus Christ. We didn't know, my dad said quickly, like that somehow excused everything. We only found out when they came knocking. I exhaled sharply, pinching the bridge of my nose. And when is he supposed to pay it back? My dad mumbled something. I glared at him. What? The end of the week, my mom whispered. I stared at them. 5 days. Ryan had 5 days to come up with $25,000. And you have nothing? I asked, already knowing the answer. My mom shook her head. Our credit cards are maxed. We don't even have enough for next month's rent. I leaned against the wall, taking it all in. A month ago, they had kicked me out without a second thought. They laughed in my face when I told them I was done paying for everything. Now, they were drowning, and looking to me to save them. I should have walked right back out that door. told them it wasn't my problem. But then I looked at Ryan. His hands were trembling. His jaw was tight. His whole body was tense, like he was trying to hold himself together. He wasn't just scared. He was terrified. I clenched my teeth. Damn it. I can cover some of it, I finally said. My mom let out a shaky breath. My dad said nothing. Ryan nodded, still looking sick. Thank you. I wasn't doing it for my parents. I wasn't even sure I was doing it for Ryan. I was doing it because if I didn't, someone was going to get seriously hurt. I'll wire you 12 grand, I said. That's all I can do. My mom grabbed my hand. Thank you, Jack. I pulled away. Don't. I turned to Ryan. And you? You're paying me back. Every single cent. He swallowed hard. I will. I didn't believe him. But I'd deal with that later. Right now, I had just bailed them out. And something told me this wasn't over. A week passed. Then 2. Then a month. Ryan hadn't sent me a single cent. At first, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was trying to get back on his feet. Maybe he was figuring things out. But the longer the silence stretched, the more obvious it became he had no intention of paying me back. No texts. No calls. Nothing. I let it slide for too long. Until one night, sitting in my apartment, staring at my near-empty fridge, I snapped. I grabbed my phone and called him. He picked up after a few rings. Hey, Jack. I didn't waste time. Where's my money? A pause. Then, I don't have it yet. I clenched my jaw. You said you'd pay me back. I will, he said quickly. I just need more time. I scoffed. More time? Ryan, it's been a month. You haven't even sent me $20. Silence. Then I heard it, video game noises in the background. I closed my eyes, exhaling through my nose. He wasn't even trying. You're screwing around, aren't you? No, I'm trying, man. I cut him off. I don't care about excuses. I bailed you out. I didn't have to, but I did. And now you're just ignoring it. I'm not ignoring it, he snapped. Things have been hard, okay? I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah? Well, things are gonna get a lot harder if you don't start paying me back. Silence. I ran a hand down my face. Whatever. Just figure it out. I hung up. I expected something after that. 100 here. 50 there. Anything. But still nothing. A week passed. Then another. And that's when I decided to go to the source. If my parents had enough money to cover Ryan's debt, they could help him repay me, right? So I called my dad. As soon as he answered, I got straight to the point. I need to talk to you about Ryan's debt. A sigh. What about it? He hasn't paid me back. Not a dime. My dad was silent for a second. Then he actually had the audacity to say, So? I froze. What do you mean, so? You gave him the money, he said, his voice flat. That was your choice. My grip on the phone tightened. It wasn't a gift. My dad let out a dry laugh. Well, that's your problem. I thought I misheard him. Excuse me. You chose to help him, he repeated, like he was explaining something to a child. That's on you. Don't come crying to us about it. I was stunned into silence. For a second, I literally didn't know what to say. Then, in a low voice, I repeated his exact words from the night they kicked me out. Family helps each other, right? Silence. I let out a short laugh. But now that I need help, that rule doesn't apply? Jack, you're an adult, he said dismissively. Handle your own problems. Something in me snapped. A month ago, they begged me to save them. They acted like I was their only hope. And now, the second they got what they wanted, they were washing their hands of me. I took a deep breath. My voice was cold. Got it. Enjoy your life, Dad. I hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, his words playing over and over again in my head. Handle your own problems. They really thought they could just use me and toss me aside, that I'd keep bailing them out while they walked all over me. They didn't know who they were dealing with. I wasn't going to let this go. Not this time. I spent the next few days thinking. No, obsessing. If Ryan wasn't going to pay me back, and my parents were just going to shrug it off like it wasn't their problem, then fine. I needed another way to get my money. And then it hit me. It was so simple, I couldn't believe I hadn't thought of it sooner. The bills. See, while I was living there, I had set up all their utilities, Wi-Fi, cable, Netflix, and even their streaming subscriptions under my name. I was the one paying for them, and guess what? After I left, they never changed the billing information. I still had full access to everything. I opened my laptop, logged in, and with a few clicks, canceled every single thing. No internet. No cable. No Netflix. No Hulu. Nothing. And then, I waited. Sure enough, the next morning, my phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I answered, putting on my best innocent voice. Hey, Mom. Jack. She sounded panicked. The internet's down. Your sister has schoolwork, and we can't even watch TV. Can you check what's going on? I smiled. Oh, I already know what happened. What? I canceled it. Silence. Then, her voice sharpened. You what? I leaned back in my chair. Yeah. I mean, why would I keep paying for something I don't use? You guys can handle it yourselves now, right? Her breath caught. Jack, your sister needs it for school. Then pay for it yourselves. I could hear my dad in the background. What's going on? Jack canceled everything. My mom hissed. There was a pause. Then my dad's voice, cold and dismissive. Good. We don't need him. I laughed. All right. Let's see how long you last without Wi-Fi. I heard my dad grab the phone from my mom. Listen, you little. I hung up, and that should have been the end of it. But I didn't know what was coming next. Because a few days later, I came home from work and immediately felt something was wrong. The door to my apartment was unlocked. My stomach twisted. I always locked my door. Slowly, I pushed it open. And then, my heart dropped. The place was trashed. Cushions were thrown everywhere. My laptop was gone. Drawers were pulled open, clothes scattered. My TV was missing. I just stood there, frozen. And then it hit me. This wasn't a random break-in. This was them. My family had just broken into my apartment. And that's when I knew this was war. I stood in the wreckage of my apartment. My fist clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. They really did it. They actually broke into my home. For a solid minute, I just stared. At the empty space where my TV used to be. At the overturned drawers. At the sheer violation of it all. I knew it was them. And this time, I wasn't letting it go. I grabbed my phone and called the cops. When the officer arrived, he took one look at the mess and asked if I had any suspects. I didn't even hesitate. My parents and my brother. His eyebrow lifted. Family. I nodded, jaw tight. I used to live with them. They kicked me out. We're not on good terms. I think they did this to get back at me. I told them everything. The money. The debt. The Wi-Fi. The years of me being their financial crutch. The second I stopped paying for everything, they turned on me. And now? Now they thought they could just take whatever they wanted. The officer took notes, then asked the big question. Would you like to press charges? I hesitated, not because I wasn't sure, but because I knew what this meant. This wouldn't be just family drama anymore. This would be real. But then I thought about it. They stole from me. After everything I did for them. And the worst part? They assumed I'd do nothing. I looked the officer dead in the eye. Yes. The next day, the cops showed up at my parents' house. I wasn't there, but I got the call soon enough. It was my mom, screaming. Jack, what did you do? I leaned back in my chair, voice calm. I filed a police report. You called the cops on your own family? I scoffed. You broke into my home. You stole from me. What the hell did you expect? It wasn't a big deal, she snapped. You just what? I cut her off. Taught me a lesson? Took what you thought you deserved? Tell me, Mom, do you even feel bad about this? Silence. Then, in a low, almost pleading voice, she said, you didn't have to call the police. I laughed. Oh, so when I help you, I'm family. But when you rob me, I'm just supposed to let it go. It wasn't robbery, she argued weakly. The cops disagree. I could hear my dad in the background, furious. Then my mom's voice dropped. Jack, we can fix this. Just drop the charges. No. She gasped, like I had slapped her. Jack, she said, her voice shaking. This is serious. Your brother. I cut her off. I gave him 12 grand. I snapped. And he still hasn't paid me back. Now he's breaking into my home? I'm done. Silence. Then she made her final move. The one she always did when she wanted something. The guilt trip. Are you really going to do this to your own family? I took a slow breath. No, Mom. My voice was calm. Cold. You did this to yourselves. And I hung up. The cops found my TV and laptop at a local pawn shop. Guess whose name was on the paperwork? Ryan's. That was all they needed. Ryan got arrested for burglary. My parents were charged as accomplices. But the real fallout? That came later. Because someone else found out. My grandparents. I'm not sure who told them, probably one of my aunts. But I got a call from my grandfather the next day. His voice was calm, but underneath, rage. "Jack," he said, "is it true? Did your parents and Ryan steal from you?" "Yes," I said simply. "It's true." A long pause. Then, quietly, he said, "They will regret it." I didn't ask what he meant, but I found out soon enough. Because my grandparents went nuclear. They cut my parents off. No more help with bills. No more financial safety net. My dad had always relied on them when things got bad, but now, he was on his own. And the cherry on top? My grandparents paid me back. Every single cent that Ryan owed me. They told me they weren't doing it for my parents. They were doing it because I was the only one in the family who had done the right thing. That was the last time I ever spoke to my parents. Months later, Ryan sent me a half-assed apology over text. Probably because my mom made him. I didn't answer. Because after all of this, I realized something. I had spent years helping people who would never help me in return. And I was done. Because now, I wasn't their safety net. I wasn't their ATM. I was finally, completely free.